I have the astute pleasure of introducing our featured speaker, Chic Thompson, who's going to be doing a presentation on creative leadership, how to create, communicate, and implement big ideas. So Chic's passion is inspiring executives, MBA students, and children to be curious first and critical second, while creative problem solving. So Chic is a Batten Fellow of Entrepreneurship at the University of Virginia's Darden School of Business and an adjunct faculty at the Brookings Institution and at the Young Presidents Organization. Harvard Business School released a case study on the teaching career of Chic entitled, "What a Great Idea." Chic worked in new product development for W.L. Gore and Associates, which is just a really fancy term for Gore-Tex. We're all familiar with them, Johnson & Johnson, and Walt Disney. His latest creative adventure is founding WagiLabs, a global social innovation incubator for kids' ideas. So with that, I am going to turn this over because Chic is going to take us on a journey through the steps of strategic curiosity that will foster a mindset of innovation for you guys today. So with that, if you could please welcome Chic Thompson.
Hello, everyone. And I don't think I've ever been pinned before, so this is a cool experience right now. I'm going to share my screen and, okay.
So like I said, please make sure and pin his video so that way it'll show up properly and you'll be able to get the whole presentation.
Okay, so hopefully you've got all that. Yes, as Dave mentioned, I want to talk about creative leadership, and I want to talk about it specifically right now because I came to an aha. You know, I've been watching a lot of streaming videos, and when you press that video to go and take a bathroom break or to eat or to answer a phone, the video stops. But when you press the pause button on the human mind because of this stay in place, or because I'm trying to learn mindfulness techniques, it's really interesting. My brain starts up in a unique way. It starts rethinking. It starts reimagining. And in my world, I call that brainstorming. And I've always said that life is a brainstorm. I know life is a beach. I grew up on the water, so I get that one. But now at 72 years old, as I reflect back, I think life is also a brainstorm. And I just want to tell you about my first brainstorm, because it came when I was about between 9 and 10 years of age. The teachers, elementary school teachers, wanted to hold me back because I couldn't read very well. I have now what's called dyslexia. And I and my mother came up with a strategy to get me through grammar school, and it actually worked in high school. I illustrated every book report. And what I noticed is that I got a D on everything I wrote because I couldn't read the book, but I got an A on everything I illustrated. And that gave me a C+. And so I illustrated science projects, book reports, posters for teachers, and that's how I got through high school. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit later, that did not work in college. However, the reason why my goal in life was to be a cartoonist. Do any of you ever see a cartoon by a gentleman named Rube Goldberg? He created the Mousetrap game, and he had a weekly cartoon strip, and he was my mentor neighbor when I grew up as a little kid. And here's a little cartoon that he drew for me when I was 10 years of age. And I got to ask Mr. Goldberg an interesting question one day, and I sort of said, you know, what's your technique? He had just won a Pulitzer Prize, and he had won people just would clip out his cartoon and they would post it on the refrigerator door. I said, what's your technique? I was thinking bigger than it's pen and ink. You know, I said, what's your strategy? How do you come up with your ideas? And he told me something that I use today. He said, when I go from A to B, I use all the letters of the alphabet. The average person, when they go from A to B, just tries to get from A to B as fast as possible. But he said, I use curiosity, and I try to see how can I use all the letters of the alphabet. And I realized through that for 33 years now, I've been teaching MBA students. And so many of them come on in with a 4.0. And this has been their life path. They are a rocket ship going from A to B. And then there are people like me and some others that could not go. I got turned down by UVA Darden Business School because of my dyslexia and because of how I scored on various tests. That's not my path. It's not A to B like that. That's my path in life. I don't know if you relate to this. I'm just sharing it because if you don't relate to it, my guesstimate is that someone in your family relates to this. That we have to take detours every once in a while. We have to pivot, as we say in entrepreneurial world. But you see that little starburst to the upper left? That's the brainstorm. That's what I call the creative collision that might happen sometime in your life when an event like a pandemic, certain experiences, certain emotions all come together, and you have to think differently. And that happened to me when I flunked out of college in my first year. As I said, my cartoons weren't great, K-12, but I got into University of Delaware, and you can see my grades. It just got worse, and I had to drop out of school. I think beer got into it. Girls were a challenge. I can write off all those excuses, but I didn't know how to study. I didn't know how to write. I knew how to draw. So I dropped out and worked on the assembly line for 2.5 years, Pepperidge Farm Bread in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. I worked second shift. And what was interesting about working second shift is I got, in 1969, there was the draft, and I got drafted. And because I just had this, second shift job, I wasn't going to college any longer. And I figured, hey, I'm going to Vietnam, and that's going to be, the Army is going to be my life. And I got in shape. I was ready to go, and I failed the medical physical. They now have determined I have Crohn's disease. Actually, there's a big correlation between autoimmune issues and dyslexia. So I guess if I had known that, so here I failed the medical physical, and I figured, well, I guess I'm going to work on the assembly line and Pepperidge Farm Bread for a little bit longer. But one of the things that happened was that since I worked second shift, I was allowed to play tennis during the day. So I would drive to University of Delaware tennis courts and play tennis, and it was a blast. And one day, a creative collision occurred. Remember, I say there are these situations that happen, and then all of a sudden you go, whoa, you got to be open to the brainstorm. There was 3 guys that came to the tennis court one Wednesday afternoon. They were older. They were like 50. I'm 72, so 50 seems really young. But they were 50 years old or so, and they wanted a 4th to play in their tennis match. You don't play tennis well with 3. You can play golf well with 3, but not tennis. And none of my young friends who I was playing with wanted to play with them. So I volunteered, and my first creative collision happened in my life. These 3 people had just quit their job at DuPont because DuPont thought their idea didn't work. Their idea was polytetrafluoroethylene, Teflon. And I was, as you saw, I took courses in chemistry. I really wanted to be a chemist. And I kept asking them questions. They kept inviting me to play, and over a 1-month period of time, I asked so many questions that they hired me as one of their first employees. And my tennis partner was Bill Gore, who had just invented, if you look it up in Wikipedia, 1969, he invented Gore-Tex. And I didn't know what job description. I mean, we didn't have an HR department. We were so small. And he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I love coming up with ideas. He said, okay. every Friday come into my office with a new use for Gore-Tex. And I go, wow. And then I realized how hard this was to try to take this material that the world didn't know. And I didn't come up with my first product until I had my first intestinal surgery. If you know about Crohn's, you normally have your first surgery in your late teens or early 20s. I had my first surgery, and I noticed that the hospital bed was hot. And the nurse said, well, all hospital beds are hot. And I go, why? And they go, because we got plastic under the sheets. Well, why? Well, because we don't want the body fluids to go and sink into the mattress because we can't clean the mattress. So I said, what if I took Gore-Tex and put it on top of the hospital bed because it was breathable, it was smooth, it was slippery, and it was water repellent. It would be repellent for any fluid except alcohol. Alcohol would go right through it. So when I got out of the hospital, I made a Gore-Tex hospital bed sheet. And in our test market, every patient that we put on it slipped out of bed. And it was a disaster. And everybody made fun of me saying, God, what a stupid idea. They would do that little hand gesture like, whoa, there you go, slipping out of bed. It worked great on my water bed at home, but it didn't work in a hospital. Well, one of the things I've learned about this, is sometimes ideas take 40 years. Almost to the day, 40 years after I created that Gore-Tex hospital bed, it got introduced to the VA hospital in Walter Reed and Brooke Army Hospital, and it is now used for our burn patients, our military burn patients. It works great in the burn unit because they wanted that smooth, slippery bed. They wanted it so that they could just wipe it clean with alcohol. And all I can tell you is every time I think of that, I get tears in my eyes because I know how hard it is to create ideas. But the harder part is to be able to go and withstand when people tell you, well, that will never work, or that's a stupid idea. Sometimes you just got to go with your gut, and that's what I really want to talk to you a little bit more about. Because my dream still was to draw cartoons for Walt Disney. That was my dream, and everyone told me. That was like, I'm going to play football for the NFL. You know, they thought, well, there's millions of cartoonists out there, and everybody. So I kept drawing cartoons, and one day, again, on a tennis court, I met a doctor named Henry Heimlich. And Dr. Heimlich, we were playing tennis, and when he found out I was a cartoonist, he said, you know, I got this technique that I think will save lives. It was, if anyone used the Heimlich maneuver? Well, he asked me if I would draw a poster that could be used in a restaurant. Well, I drew the first Heimlich maneuver poster for him. It was used in restaurants. Dr. Heimlich got on the Johnny Carson show, showed the poster. Disney heard about what I was doing, and I finally, in 1976, became an Imagineer. I worked for Epcot on the Health Pavilion, and I thought, God, this is great. I've got my dream. You know, I'm not even 30 yet. I'm living my dream, and I'm going to draw cartoons and healthcare cartoons. And every idea I threw out at Disney got shot down. And I just want to tell you one idea I threw out. I'm in this meeting, and we're talking about how do we distribute Disney cartoons to in schools. Because schools were sick and tired of that 16 millimeter projector. Remember 16 millimeter projectors? You had the loop, and you had to do all this thing. You had to have a little loop there, or the thing would break. If the film broke, the teacher put Scotch tape on it, and then it caught on fire, and then it burned up. And then the teachers said, hey, we want to use something different. There's this new technology called Betamax. So I suggested, why doesn't Disney put their films for education on Betamax? And I got a letter from the president of Walt Disney who said, our cartoons will never go on videotape as long as I'm president of Walt Disney. My friends, again, made fun of me because I got reprimanded, and I did what I did in school. Remember in school raising your hand and the teacher called on you and you threw out an idea and then everybody made fun saying that your question was stupid? So you never raised your hand again? So I just shut down. And after around the 5th month, I said, I can't take this any longer. So I'm going to go and think about why wouldn't Disney use videotape? And then I thought, well, they were afraid that they would lose control. So what else? Well, nobody else has tried it yet. And I go, wow. And then I thought about that word never that I've heard my whole life. And I realized I made a decision. Never doesn't mean never, at least not to me any longer. Never means there's the entrepreneurial blind spot to find an opportunity. There's where there's less competition. There's where there's less cost of entry. And I think the number of entrepreneurs that are going to start up things after this quarantine, I mean, is just going to be amazing. I'm working with so many teams right now about reinventing education. And so what I decided to do is come up with my own cartoon company. I didn't have anything to lose. I only had like $500, a VW bus, and I was in Burbank. So I decided to move back to Charlottesville, Virginia, and I decided to create a cartoon company using my #1 technique that whenever I needed an idea, I would always say, what would I never do? And then I would make a list of 10 things I would never do. Like, where would I never go on vacation? And then I make a list of 10 things I would never go, and then say, what's right about that? Is there anything there? And that's how I plan my vacations. That's how I plan the courses I take. That's how, I mean, the whole thing. So I said, what would Mickey never do? Mickey would never use videotape. Mickey would never do healthcare cartoons, because that's my passion, is healthcare, on sexually transmitted diseases. Like Goofy and syphilis don't go together. So, and Mickey would never sell their films at a nonprofit rate. So they would never create a nonprofit. Peter and the Wolf sold for $365. I wanted to sell the videotapes for $95. So I want to show you my first cartoon. I apologize, it is not politically correct. I am personally not politically correct. I look for blind spots. And my research showed in 1977 that the world was ready to enter a pandemic called genital herpes, which was a pandemic. And the only way to prevent that spread that we had was to get people to wear a condom. Guys did not want to wear condoms. So I decided to do the first educational program. It was called Peter Rises Again. And it was an animated film, 30-second little cartoon, and it was used in drive-in movie theaters and all kinds of movie theaters. And then it was shown all over the world. It got on CNN, USA Today. Everybody was, this is just my sketch for it. And then my next film was on genital herpes, which became the #1 selling health education program in the world. And then when I did that program, I had an author in Charlottesville named Rita Mae Brown, who's a lesbian author, contact me, and she said in 1981, my friends are dying in San Francisco and New York City. Will you do a program? The disease did not have a name. Well, first off, I want to show you, I did an animated movie called Rolling with Love with Rita Mae Brown, and that was about homosexuality, and it was 2 gay tennis balls living in a tennis ball can, because she was telling me my gay friends were dying. And then after we did that, we did the first educational program on AIDS. It was the one that was used in the Ryan White case, which is the first case in American schools. Our center, our AIDS center in UVA is called the Ryan White Center. So by 1982, I had 10 cartoonists, number of different plays. We were we were just creating cartoon programs to educate the world about really tough diseases. I sold my company to Encyclopedia Britannica. And one of the things I learned at Disney, I got to work with a gentleman. If you read Fahrenheit 451, I never read it, but he said, Ray Bradbury, he said, life is trying things to see if they work. And that's what I realized in my life, is I was trying things to see if they work. And if they don't work, then you go, what's right about it? And see if you can flip it. When I failed the medical physical, if I hadn't failed the medical physical and had gone into the military, I would have never met Bill Gore. I would have never met Heimlich. I would have never. And the reason why, so by failing the medical physical, I got to play tennis. And so when something doesn't go well, challenge yourself, go, well, what's right about it? And that flip can make all the difference in your strategy for how you go and execute, whether at work or your family. So I want to tell you a little bit. I'm going to be very time conscious. So I want to tell you what I've been doing for the last 30 years, just having fun, going and inventing products when I really like the client. And I really I'm all about health. When I've got 5 serious autoimmune issues. So I'm all about health and diet and all those things. And I really wanted to go and help Pepsi and Coke transition from cornstarch and corn syrup and all that kind of stuff. In 1994, I got asked to run a brainstorm because they had created a drink. They wanted to create this healthy drink called Crystal Pepsi. It was clear, but it was Pepsi without the caramel color. And it was like, people hated it. Their slogan was, you've never seen a taste like this. Homer Simpson called it Crystal Buzz Cola. And it was like, invisible cola. Jon Stewart called it Crystal Meth Pepsi. It got pulled off of the market. And so Pepsi called me up and said, hey, we want to brainstorm. Come on, come up with a new product. You got all day. And I said, well, I don't need all day. Just sell water. And they go, we will never sell water. I go, why not? They said, we won't sell water because Perrier has the whole bottled water market. 85% of the bottled water in 1994 was Perrier. Anybody remember it? Little green bottle, you paid extra for it, had a little fizz to it. It was cool to be at a cocktail party. I don't drink because of my stomach, but so I would always have a Perrier. Well, I said, well, if you're not going to sell water, let's think about what's popular now. Perrier, Starbucks just opened up. It opened up, first store outside of Seattle, New York City, 87th Street, 1994. So I said, okay, our brainstorm is going to be, let's take coffee that that Starbucks makes, an Italian name. Let's take Pepsi, your distribution network, and let's take Perrier in a cool bottle, and let's create a drink. And in that brainstorm, we created Frappuccino. Now, some of you probably never knew that Frappuccino is made by Pepsi, because I wasn't allowed to tell anybody. The point is, now the story's out, and I can tell, but that 9.5 ounce bottle of Frappuccino that you buy in the store used to be made by Pepsi, but it was branded by Starbucks. And Harvard Business School went and did a story on it as the most successful brainstorm in history. That brainstorm generated $2 billion. And I just did it with you in 10 minutes. That's what you can do. It's unbelievable how, if you take 3 things and you juggle them. For example, one of my friends in Atlanta, Rob Frowine, said he noticed 10 years ago, small businesses can't get loans at bank. Internet was trying to figure out mortgages. How can we do mortgages in a day? And mobile lending was starting to come out. So we stretched it and said, how could small businesses get 10-minute approval for a loan and do it just from their smartphone? And we came up with Kabbage. I don't know if you've heard of Kabbage. It's the #1 fintech disruptor in the world. It is now just gave out. It's 7 years old. It's given out over $7 billion in loans, has 185,000 small businesses. And the CEO says, when he tells people how it started, he said it started with a napkin with the juggling technique as we were having dinner one night. Right now, I'm working with San Francisco. I'm working with the police chief and I'm doing it for free. I do a lot of things like that with the police. I'm working with Portland, Oregon also. And his 3 challenges are retention of police officers, recruitment of police officers, and the homeless. If you juggle those 3 things together, you're going to realize that your police officers are going to also have to be social workers. Because the police officers right now say, whoa, that homeless issue, that's not our problem. We're police officers. Well, actually, it is, because the police officer of the future, if you're going to be in San Francisco or Portland or Baltimore or Philadelphia, they're also going to have to be social workers. And you start rethinking about it. So when you have a challenge, juggle 3 things, your brain will bubble up. I call it the smash up. So to go and walk my talk, 7 years ago, I turned 65. I went into my dean because I was in the hospital again for another surgery. I told him I was 118 pounds, soaking wet. My doctor told me if I caught the flu, I would be dead. I was scared to death. I went into my dean and I said, I'm retiring. And he looked right at me because he knows my favorite technique. He said, what would you never do? And I said, I would never teach in an elementary school because it's a petri dish. I'd get sick, I'd be dead. He said, wear a face mask. And I go, come on. He said, he picks up the phone and he called a local Montessori school in Charlottesville, Mountaintop Montessori. And he said, I've got a faculty member that's come on over. I want him to teach for an hour. Your elementary kids, he invented Frappuccino. I want him to tell that story, and I want him to help the kids invent their own soft drink, healthy soft drink. I went over, I wore my face mask, and my world changed. I had my creative collision, not teaching, but after the class. A little girl came up to me and wrapped her arms around my knees and said, thank you, Mr. Thompson, that was really fun. I broke down. Now, because here's my blind spot. I don't have children. I've never had someone wrap their arms around my knees. And I said, could I go and teach elementary school? But I'm sick. So I went to my doctor and we talked about it. And I said, I'm going to do it virtually. And I'm going to challenge those old rules of school. What I'm going to teach is that these old rules of school of one right answer, teacher's always right, the answer's in the teacher's edition, the answer's not on the ceiling, and keep your eyes on your own paper is outdated. So I want to give you a little quiz just to demonstrate what I'm trying to teach. How many squares are there? Just anyone want to shout out if you... I'm going to put on a little music too. So just start counting squares as you listen to the music. Squares have 4 equal sides. The blue is not a square, it's a rectangle. Great, thanks for holding up 16. So you saw 16, did anybody see more? Did anybody see 21? Did anybody see 26? Good. There's actually 30. If you go and see the 16 small ones, then you go 2 by 2, and there are 9 2 by 2s. If you'll start seeing each, start moving around the corners, and then move in 1 square, and then there's a set of 4s going around, then there's a set of 2 by 2 right in the center. And then there's 3 by 3s, which is the last one the human brain normally sees. And then, of course, there's the big one. So the right answer is 30. It's been in, you get this quiz question in 5th grade, and the right answer in 5th grade is 16. And I found in 10th grade, the right answer is 30. So I asked McGraw-Hill, why the difference? And they said, well, it's a different learning. In 5th grade, we're just supposed to learn, you know, the 4 by 4s. But in 10th grade, you're supposed to learn the formula, the sum of 4 squared plus 3 squared plus 2 squared plus 1 squared, which is equals 30, which is called factorial. And I go, why don't you teach that in 5th grade? They go, well, no, the kids, you don't understand. And I'm going, I do understand, and I'm going to break the rules. So I teach elementary school all over the world, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, Trinidad, it's called WagiLabs. We're all over the world now. And I put this up there, and one little girl said, Mr. Thompson, since you're coming across, this girl is Accra, Ghana. This is 5th grade, probably 9-year-old girl. She said, Mr. Thompson, all the lines on your computer are composed of pixels, and pixels are square. So I said, how do I see a pixel? And she said, magnify your screen by 400%, turn the line on an angle. And then another kid said, do you have 3D capabilities on your computer? And I didn't even know. But I told him what kind of computer I had, and he told me, yeah, your MacBook Air, you've got 3D. And then they challenged me, so how many squares are there now? So I sent off the challenge to my friend who's the lead mathematician at NASA on the Mars Curiosity rover. And he created a whole 1-page formula, and I then sent it to the kids, and they posted it on their wall. That's what WagiLabs is all about. I will never let someone just go 16 or 21. It's more. It's using the term of improv. It's go, and how do you see it differently? Because what's fascinating about this is that Einstein said the way when you're stuck on a problem, you need to look at your challenge from a different perspective than it was handed to you. If you look at that box that I showed you a little bit ago, and you thought it was in a book, the right answer would be 16. But this is on a computer screen, so the right answer is in the millions of squares. So at WagiLabs, Waggy stands for what a great idea, labs. We teach the kids to find a second right answer, to look at things from new perspectives. The answer is different this year. We always tell them that. Next year, the answer is going to be different because we're challenging. And that questions are on the ceiling, and it's okay to look at the ceiling because that's where the questions are. And that you can look at other people's paper because that's now called collaboration. So we do everything virtually, and we do a lot of WhatsApp because we do a lot of international. And our WagiLabs, we're all about doing social good, ideas for good. And our E equals MC squared is curiosity plus compassion plus courage equals what we call a social kidpreneur. And here's the voyage we take the kids on. We help them discover their passion. They become a detective. They ask great questions. They uncover needs in their community. They learn empathy. They define their challenge. They brainstorm. They prototype. I've totally reinvented design thinking to go. I teach design thinking, but I really kidified it so because we're dealing with 3rd through 5th grade. We don't have a Shark Tank, we have a Guppy Tank. The kids create music videos, and there are my kids. They're the kids that I Skype in with at 6 a.m. because Ghana is 5 hours off. And here's a little video that the kids in Ghana, this is before coronavirus. The girls in Ghana, in a remote part of Ghana, said they wanted to get their community to wash their hands to prevent malaria. So I said, okay, let's create posters. And they go, yeah, we could do that. We want to create a music video. And I go, do you know how to write music? And they go, yeah. I said, can you record it? They go, yeah, we all have phones. We can record it. Okay. I said, who's your favorite singer? And they go, T.S. I said, who's T.S.? They go, Taylor Swift. I go, okay. So I want to show you what they sent me. This was 100% done by kids. The only thing adults did is I got some of my friends in Nashville to add some music to the background because the kids didn't know how to sync the music up. These kids are 9 and 10.
Have fun. 1, 2, clap, clap, clap. Every day back. Wash. Every day wash. Bath every day. Wash every day. Wash your hands. After break your hands. Show the hands and healthy, healthy and strong.
And the parents got involved too. And now they do it in their native language, which is called Tweet. So you got to see what the kids can do. That video hit the Ghanaian TV. Those kids are rock stars now. There are posters all over Ghana promoting their music video, and this is pre-coronavirus. Here are my kids in Nigeria. These kids built their own classroom, and they asked me, do I have kids? And I told them no. I said, ideas are my kids. So they decided to call me daddy, and they tell me that their ideas are my grandkids. I cry every time I think of these kids, because these kids don't have a regular school to go to. WagiLabs is their only school, and I built that school from scratch for $5,000. I mean, what a great, I'm living my dream in my retirement with my face mask on, doing it virtually, and this is all pre-corona. So there are my kids in Chicago. We're in inner city Chicago. We tie in with the YWCA. We're in all the Boys and Girls Clubs. And the other thing is, everything is free. We give everything away. So all of this reminded me of my favorite poet, Robert Frost, who said, when I was young, my teachers were old. Now, when I am old, my teachers are the young. And I go, wow. I wake up every morning learning about memes and Minecraft and different things that the kids are playing and doing. And so we created what's called the Waggy Ways, which I use with adults too. You know, dream big, do good, persistence, grit, keep going, play it forward, walk in others' shoes. But the big one is get messy. What I mean by get messy, that's a term used in Montessori schools. You know, get messy. And so as I start to wrap up, some of my friends said, gosh, you know, you've really been lucky. And I have to say, I don't think it's luck. I think it's passionate curiosity. There's a gift that you get when you're severely, severely dyslexic. Einstein talked about it. He said that he was passionately curious, and that he said a passionately curious person, when they're looking for a needle in a haystack, doesn't stop when they find the needle. They look for everything in the haystack that can act like a needle. And kids are passionately curious. They'll sing, they'll dance, they'll draw, they'll do all this for you. No reservation. But my challenge to us is, how many of us will tell the world, I need 3 beers to dance? Or, I can't sing because someone told you you can't sing. Or my favorite one is, you tell the world you can't draw, you say, I can't draw a straight line. Well, I'm a cartoonist and I can't draw a straight line. That's what a ruler is for. We can all draw, we can all sing, we can all dance. So I just want to go and show you, give you a couple more exercises to do, and then I'll open up some Q&A. Just think about, what are the 2 words inside the black box there? Just say them out loud. I won't be able to hear you, but just say them out loud. The 2 words. Now, what are the colors of the 2 words of the words inside the black box? Say them out loud. Okay, yellow and white. Good. The left brain reads the words, the right brain sees the colors. Okay? Now comes the quiz. I want you to now say out loud the words left to right and top down, okay? I want you, as quickly as you can, say the words left to right and top down as quickly as you can. The words. Get ready, do it out loud. I won't be able to hear you, but just do it out loud as fast as you can. Go. Okay, as I timed you from the people I could see, you're around 8 seconds. The kids were 13 seconds, so you're faster than a 5th grader. Okay, now I want you to read the colors of the words, left to right and top down. The kids can do the colors of the words in 13 seconds. Adults sometimes have a hard time doing the colors of the words. I want you to read the colors of the words, left to right, top down, just the colors, not the words, the colors. Go. "21 seconds, 22 seconds. Great. Does anybody have a headache? You can take a Tylenol now. And the reason that happened is because your left and the right side of your brains aren't in sync. The right creative side of the brain has atrophied. So I got a little exercise for you. I made up a term. It's called neurobics. It's a 30-day extreme brain makeover. I can tell you, I do this every day. Because I think what happens to our brain, I call it mental sweatpants, that the right side of your brain atrophies, and therefore it just feels cozy and comfortable, just like you do. I mean, I might have this blue shirt on, but I got sweatpants on below it. I just love that cozy feeling, and I think that's what happens to the right side of your brain. You're going, oh, hey, I don't have to be creative. Left brain, I'm just talking, that's the left brain. I'm doing analytics, left brain. My creative brain, I'll wait till I watch a movie and be creative. So what I want you to do, when you do go driving, I'm actually going grocery shopping this afternoon at Wegmans. Drive to and from grocery store or work a different way every once in a while. Use the mouse with your other hand. I do 1 week right-handed, the next week left-handed. Listen to a new radio or TV station every once in a while. Maybe the reason why I'm divorced is because I move my kitchen utensils every month to a different drawer. Because I want to be conscious of when I'm chopping. I love to cook and I want to be totally conscious of what I'm doing, so I move my utensils. You walk into a grocery store, they know how the path you're going to take, so break the pattern. Start in the middle of the store. Your brain's going to freak out, which is good. It makes your brain alive. If you look through a magazine, you pick up a magazine, before you read it, look through it backwards. That's your right side of your brain. Final thing is that Jonas Salk, who saved the world, I mean, he's a lot in the news right now because he created the Salk vaccine. He said, the answers to my challenge already exist. I just haven't asked the right questions or seen the right stimuli. So questions are so key. Look, you ask 65 questions per day at 5, 41 questions per day at 8. And by the time you're 44, you only ask 6 questions per day. At 5 years of age, those 65 questions you asked per day all started with why. At 44, you stopped asking why. You don't ask why again until you retire. And that why question is, why did I walk into this room, which offers no value to the world? So we entered school as question marks, we graduated as periods, is what I would say. So what I want you to do is realize the correlation. I work with Operation Smile in Virginia Beach. Dr. Bill McGee and I are close friends. We're both severely dyslexic. Dr. McGee started Operation Smile. And he taught me that we laugh, smile 113 times per day at 5, 83 times per day at 8. And at 44 years of age, we only smile or laugh 11 times per day. I know adults that think 11 is a lot. So we call it becoming terminally serious. That's what happens to us in our 40s. I want you to break out, because look what happens with creativity. Oh, and you're going to get copies of all these slides, so you can have it. I'm 100% open source. So look at you. By the time you're 44, you're at 2 percentile in creativity. Look at our world leaders. They're all at 2 percentile in their creativity. They're only asking 6 questions per day, and they're not laughing. Is it time for younger leaders? Or is it time to just asking why? When I see a problem, I go, why is that happening? And then I get a response and go, why is that happening? And then I get a response, why is that happening? And we get a response, why is that? And the reason why I asked 5 times is I spent a year traveling many years ago with a gentleman that was 85 years of age. I teamed up with Dr. Deming, who designed continuous improvement. And we traveled all over the United States teaching continuous improvement, and I taught creativity. And the #1 lesson I learned is if you want to get to the root cause of a problem, you've got to ask, why is something occurring 5 times? So what's fascinating, it will also help you self-diagnose things. One of my autoimmune issues, my most severe one, is I have the worst case of osteoporosis UVA hospital has ever seen in a male. And they couldn't figure it out. At 55, I had the bone density of an 83-year-old man. I've been on 100% disability since 55 years of age, but hadn't stopped me, but I'm on 100% disability and my insurance company pays me, so that's great, but it stopped at 65. That's a bummer. However, how would a marathon runner, healthy person, get such severe osteoporosis? Well, when you start thinking malabsorption from, Crohn's, and you start going, why? Well, if it had been diagnosed at 20, that I would have had malabsorption, I wouldn't have osteoporosis now. But nobody asked why. Why were my bones thinning? So if you have a child that's not doing well in school, think, why are they not doing well? Get a response. Why for that response? Get another response. Well, why for that response? It's fascinating when you dig deep. And my visioning exercise for you is that, I don't know, right now people are thinking 3 to 5 years out. What do we want to look like in our organization in 2023? Okay, come up with your list of what you want to look like, do your half-day brainstorm, but then take 15 minutes and go, what would we never do to achieve those goals? And I want to just close with a story that if we can just keep it with us, I told Dave that I did have one story and this thing, we can record it and all that, but please just realize that I'm respecting the privacy of my client. My largest client is in the intelligence community. And all I'm going to say is that I was in a skiff 2 years ago. That's the secret room where you can't have a PowerPoint clicker. And I was running a brainstorm about what is this agency going to look like in 2025, and then what do we need to do to get there? And someone said we need to be able to work from home. And everybody laughed. Yeah, no, we can't. I mean, because we're an intelligence agency. We can't work from home. And I said, wait a minute, reframe. There's a global pandemic. Everybody has to work from home. This was 2.5 years ago. So I made them spend an hour. What do we do? I got a call from them just recently saying, you were right. We're all working from home. We never thought we could. So I'm just saying, this technique is as old as time. The Tao Te Ching, the sun rises, the sun sets, everything goes to its opposite. So look at your challenge backwards and forwards and upside down. What do we want to look like in 2023? Okay, that's left brain. But the right brain comes in and you go, what would we never do? And then you challenge that never and say, what's right about it? So here's your homework. What's your never? Dave asked you about what's a fun fact. Maybe for the next meeting, Dave could throw out, what's your never? What course would you never take for, to advance your learning? Where would you never go on vacation? I know vacation is crazy time. What would you never do? What conversation would you never have with your family? Or what game would you never play? Or what TV show would you never watch? Or like, I would never go to Gold's Gym and become a bodybuilder because I'm 125 pounds and 72 years of age. Well, before the Corona, guess where I went? I decided to challenge that. I go to UVA's gym and work out with the football players. And my workout partner is 360 pounds and 19 years old. And when we chest butt after we do some stuff, he's so proud of what I can do now. We're called the Fly and the Windshield. They've actually created a Facebook page of us because they think I get squashed when we chest butt. So I'm having a blast and I'm around 19-year-olds. So what is your never? So in closing, Plato said it best. Plato said, human beings strive to achieve immortality. And there's 3 ways to achieve immortality. One way is by having children. Second way is by planting trees. And the third way is by creating ideas and help make them happen. So I thank you for the opportunity to present and now open it up for some Q&A. I think we got